The final 24 hours of Gainesville Ripper. What Danny Rolling did will shock you. He haunted Florida's college towns with unspeakable cruelty. And now, his final moments reveal a haunting calm that's as disturbing as the crimes that made him infamous. Danny Rolling, better known as the Gainesville Ripper, left a trail of fear in his wake. 5 young students slain in just 4 days. And later, the quiet confession of 3 more victims in Louisiana. On October 25th, 2006, the state of Florida prepared to carry out the execution of a man many considered beyond redemption. But as the end drew near, Rolling didn't plead or panic. Instead, he chose to sing. No remorse, no apologies, just gospel verses drifting through the execution chamber, leaving witnesses chilled to the bone. What was going through his mind in those final 24 hours? Was it guilt, denial, or something far more unsettling? Stay with us as we take you inside the eerie final day of the Gainesville Ripper. Dear friends, on the morning of October 25th, 2006, a quiet tension hung over Florida State Prison. It was execution day for one of the state's most notorious inmates, Danny Harold Rolling, the man dubbed the Gainesville Ripper. For over a decade, Rolling's name had been synonymous with horror. His crimes 5 college students in Gainesville murdered over a 4-day spree had left Florida reeling. And yet, in the hours leading up to his death, Danny Rolling remained eerily composed. He awoke in his death row cell at dawn. The guards brought him a standard breakfast: eggs, toast, cereal. But the tray went mostly untouched. For weeks, Rolling had shown little interest in food. The reality of what was coming, lethal injection at 6, hung over every motion, every breath. Sleep had been shallow. His cell, a stark 12 by 7 foot space, felt even smaller under the weight of finality. At 8, his brother Kevin and a minister from their hometown church in Longview, Texas, arrived. The Department of Corrections permitted them 3 hours together, an unusual allowance, with the last hour allowing physical contact. During that time, Danny passed on his few belongings: a small TV, some hygiene supplies, colored pencils, and the haunting illustrations he'd created over the years. The moment wasn't tearful or dramatic, it was quiet, like Rolling had already made peace with what was coming. Around 11, he was served his last meal. Florida allows inmates to request meals under $40, provided the ingredients are available. Rolling chose lobster tail, butterfly shrimp, a baked potato, sweet tea, and strawberry cheesecake. Unlike breakfast, he devoured it all. As the guards noted, he enjoyed every bite. For a man about to die, it was one final moment of indulgence, a taste of a world that had long since shut him out. But even as he finished dessert, the Supreme Court issued its final ruling. His appeal, which claimed lethal injection was cruel and unusual punishment, had been denied. The decision wasn't a surprise. The courts had made their stance clear. Danny Rolling would die that evening, from noon until 4. Rolling spent time with Reverend Mike Hudspeth, a Pentecostal minister from his hometown. Through the bars of his death row cell, the two spoke for hours. But what came out of that meeting shocked even those closest to the case. Rolling handed Hudspeth a handwritten confession, one that linked him to a 17-year-old cold case in Shreveport, Louisiana. In a chilling note, he admitted, "I and I alone am guilty. It was my hand that took those precious lights out of this old dark world." The victims were a family of 3: William Grissom, his daughter Julie, and her 8-year-old son Sean. The confession detailed how he entered their home on the night of November 4th, 1989, and killed all 3. He even admitted to posing Julie's body after death, a behavior that mirrored the grisly scenes left behind in Gainesville. For years, authorities had suspected Rolling's involvement in the Shreveport case, but he had never confirmed it. Now, hours before his death, he finally did. Outside the prison, a crowd was forming. Reporters, protesters, and spectators gathered on a barren field across from the facility. Echoing the scene from Ted Bundy's execution 17 years earlier, supporters of the death penalty held signs and cheered. Opponents formed a solemn prayer circle, softly singing, "Jesus, remember me." The contrast was stark, one side demanding justice, the other decrying vengeance. By 5, The crowd had grown to more than 200. Inside the prison, Rolling remained calm. A letter he had written to the Associated Press described his prison life as brutal, comparing his treatment to that of a mangy dog. But he also acknowledged the devastation he had caused. "Any complaint I may have," he wrote, "pales in comparison to the terrible wrong I inflicted upon good people." As the hour approached, the ritual began. Rolling was led from his cell, hands and feet shackled. The guards, practiced and somber, guided him through the halls of Florida State Prison toward the death chamber. The silence was broken only by the echo of footsteps. At 5:45, he was laid on the gurney and strapped down, arms extended for the IV lines. The room was cold, sterile, unforgiving. 47 witnesses were in attendance, families of victims, prison officials, media representatives. Many had waited over a decade for this moment, hoping for closure. Among them were loved ones of the 5 college students brutally slain in Gainesville. They had come to see justice delivered. Before the execution, Rolling was asked if he had any final words. He offered none. No apology, no recognition of the lives he had destroyed. Instead, he chose to sing. For 2 minutes, Danny Rolling filled the execution chamber with gospel verses. His voice was steady, measured. He who flung the stars into the heavens above, created the oceans, mountains, eagles, and doves. None greater than thee, O Lord, none greater than thee. He sang 5 full verses. Not a single one referenced his crimes. There was no remorse, just an eerie calm, a final act of religious expression that some saw as peace and others as defiance. When the singing stopped, the drugs began to flow. Sodium pentothal to sedate him, pancuronium bromide to paralyze, potassium chloride to stop the heart. Within minutes, the man who had terrorized Gainesville was gone. At exactly 6:13, Danny Rolling was pronounced dead. Outside, the crowd began to disperse. Some cheered, others wept. And for the families left behind, a chapter long, painful, and dark had come to an end. Rolling's case remains one of the most chilling in Florida's history, not just for the brutality of the crimes, but for the silence he maintained, the lack of emotion, the absence of guilt. Even in his final hours, Danny Rolling remained an enigma. And as the prison gates shut behind the last witness that night, one question lingered in the air. Can justice ever truly be served when the person at the center of it all refuses to look back? Was Danny Rolling seeking redemption? Or was he simply sealing his legacy as one of America's most remorseless killers? As the final dose coursed through his veins, Danny, Rolling, a man who had stolen the lives of 5 young students and shattered countless others, slipped into silence. At 6:13, his reign of terror officially ended. There were no grand confessions, no apologies to the families who had waited so long for justice. Just gospel verses sung into the void, and a calm, clinical death that felt almost too easy for someone whose crimes were anything but. Outside, candlelight flickered, protesters chanted, and loved ones held photos of victims they'd never see again. For some, Rolling's execution marked closure. For others, it was just another reminder that the scars he left would never fully heal. Justice, perhaps, was served, but peace remains more elusive. In the end, Danny Rolling left this world as he lived in it, silent, calculated, and unapologetic. The Gainesville Ripper is gone, but the pain he caused still echoes in every family he destroyed.